Welcome to Police Stories, inspired by your suggestions. If you have your own story to share, or if you'd like to recreate a police officer situation, we want to hear from you. Have you experienced a car accident in BeamNG Drive? Don't hesitate to check out the submission form in the video description. And remember, always show the aftermath of the accident for a more impactful story. Suggested by DASU 6269. A police officer received a call from dispatch about a drunk driver reported near his location, a white Gavro van. He stopped at an intersection when suddenly the driver sped past him. He immediately began the chase, reporting it to headquarters and requesting backup. The driver was speeding dangerously, posing a significant public threat, but the officer didn't expect the tragedy that was about to unfold just a few miles down the road. They were approaching a bridge, hidden behind a sharp curve. The driver took the curve at high speed, lost control, and then the worst happened. He spun out into an oncoming bus full of students returning from a trip. The police officer was also involved as the crash occurred right in front of his car. He quickly called for backup, reporting that his legs were in severe pain before checking on the drivers. When all units arrived, they rescued a crying child whose mother was standing in the bus at the time of the crash. The impact killed her instantly. The child lost her mother just 6 months after her father died in a train crash. The drunk driver had a blood alcohol concentration of 0.20% and was sentenced to 15 years in prison. This is why you should never drink and drive. You're putting everyone's life at risk, especially your own. At best, you'll end up in jail for a few years. Is it worth it? Check out Ryzen hosting for BeamNP server hosting. Link in the description. Submitted by the plane himself. Officer Jacob received a report of a grocery store robbery. He quickly responded, but as soon as he arrived, everything changed. Jacob immediately called for backup as the suspect fled aggressively through the heavy traffic. He was endangering many citizens on their way home from work. Soon, another unit joined the pursuit, Officer Jeremy. Jeremy had a strong vehicle, so he floored it to get closer to the suspect. The chase continued through a small modern village, bustling with families and workers. Jeremy was close behind the suspect, but he wasn't prepared for what happened next. The suspect hit a bump in the road, causing him to lose control and crash into a house. What followed was a tragedy. The suspect, a 35-year-old named Arnold, crashed into the house while the entire family was inside. His car exploded into flames after crashing into their living room, killing 2 children and severely injuring their parents. Emergency units arrived within 5 minutes, but the damage was already done. The parents were rushed to the hospital, while the suspect burned in the car. Officers had no chance of rescuing him. Is it worth trying to escape the police, risking the lives of others and your own? Officer Mark was on his way to a location where a stolen vehicle had been reported. As soon as he arrived, 2 suspects in the stolen vehicle fled the parking lot. He started the chase, immediately calling for backup. An undercover cop soon joined the pursuit, and they continued chasing the suspects through moderate traffic. Later, 2 more officers joined the chase, and Officer Mark was determined to stop the suspects. Unfortunately, no one expected the chase to end tragically. An elderly couple was driving through the intersection when they saw the reckless driver approaching, but it was too late. The suspect's vehicle T-boned their car. Officer Mark quickly blocked the suspect's vehicle and rushed to the white pickup truck that had been T-boned. An ambulance arrived shortly after, called by Officer Mark, who was helping the elderly couple out of the vehicle. Both citizens were taken to the ambulance for treatment. Suddenly, the elderly woman passed out in the ambulance. The two suspects were identified as members of a gang involved in kidnapping children and selling them to mafia organizations. The SWAT team later raided their basement, finding a truck that was about to leave. They arrested 10 suspects and rescued 10 children who were being held in the semi-truck. This story is a continuation of a serial killer case. The link to the previous episode is in the pinned comment. Detective Moore continued his investigation over several months, but this case was extremely challenging, with little evidence to go on. One day, he decided to meet with FBI agent Rachel Dawson. They discussed the fact that the killer had left no DNA, fingerprints, or any other evidence behind. But Rachel told him, "Everyone makes mistakes. We just need to find them." Rachel showed Moore a file on the case, including a map of the locations where the killer had left his victims. It revealed a pattern that suggested where another murder might occur. Based on the distance between the murders and the intervals, they narrowed down the search to a small area in Texas. It was a small town, the perfect place for someone to hide in plain sight. One of the victims, Mary Lang, who was found 2 months ago, had ties to this village. Her grandparents lived there, and she had called from that town 3 weeks before her death, though she never mentioned going there to anyone. After a small investigation and checking the area, they found it to be a really hidden village in the forest. They got a tip about a man named Samuel Harlow, who was rarely seen in town. He was a farmer with no family, friends, phone, or internet connection. The key piece of evidence came from a woman who claimed to have seen Mary with a man matching Harlow's description. After a thorough investigation, the police discovered more details, making Harlow the main suspect. They obtained a warrant to search his property. They raided his home, but as they arrived, Harlow was attempting to leave in his car. They started chasing him, but he refused to pull over. After a short chase on dusty forest roads, one of the officers performed a pit maneuver. They tried to block him, but Harlow continued to flee until he crashed into a police car. The officers pulled him out and arrested him for evading police, causing damage and injuring officers. He confessed to all the murders and was sentenced to life in prison. Officer Nightblood was patrolling the area and was about to stop by a local shop for coffee and donuts to start his shift. Suddenly, he got a call about a pregnant woman who needed assisted transport. He quickly turned around and headed to the address given by dispatch. The couple followed him in their car once he reached them. The traffic was moderate. Fortunately, everyone understood the situation and no one blocked the van. Finally, they reached the hospital, and the couple quickly rushed inside. The baby was born healthy. It's a boy. Submitted by Pikeli. A famous person was preparing to be transported to the airport. 2 police SUVs were escorting his limo from the front and back, but no one expected what was about to happen. A parked vehicle on the side of the highway suddenly exploded as they approached. Both police cars stopped. The first one exploded as it was right next to the blast. The second car tried to protect the limo, but suddenly, as they were calling for backup and reporting the assassination attempt, a sedan with a machine gun mounted on the roof attacked the convoy and the police units that quickly arrived. Many officers were shot, but the famous person, along with the second SUV, managed to escape before the attackers gave chase. Fortunately, more police units arrived and they pursued the suspect. They managed to apprehend the assailant after the machine gun ran out of ammo. The VIP was then moved to an armored van and safely transported to the local airport.